So Vyr Chantodo with the Captain Crimson is going to be a very nice build for Wizard next season, especially for speed farming, so those speed GRs. While this particular variation doesn't complete the rifts in under like 2 minutes or anything like that, it's gonna be more like 3 to 5 minutes, but it can push a higher grade rift than most of our builds, going up to potentially up to 115 even in a solo speed, which is really nice. And this is partly due to the Captain Crimsons, of course. We're stacking a lot of cooldown reductions, so we're getting more multiplier here. And also, we get to keep an extra weapon this season. So as compared to the last time we had an unlocked cube, we now have a 4th cube slot, which means this particular build previously would keep the Fazulas and the Small Me and drop the Furnace. Well, guess what? We get to keep the Furnace this time around. So it's going to be even better than it was last time, decimating those elites, just making the flow of the rift that much more better, more smoother, in my opinion, it feels. So definitely something to look forward to this season. This is probably something you've dabbled with before, but just a quick reminder, the Captain Crimsons here is going to give you over 75% cooldown. That's what you need to hit to be able to reduce your Archon Teleport to the GCD of 0.5 seconds, because it is a 2 second space cooldown. We're also running the Captain Crimsons here. It's dual purpose. You can drop a Zodiac ring. You don't need that ring anymore. So it allows you to place room for the Ring of Grandeur to afford this, basically. And then it also lets you keep your weapon. You don't really need, because we're reducing all this cooldown, we don't need an Engiom or an Aetherwalker or anything like that to speed up our teleports to make it more fluid. It's by default going to teleport very quick and just go through the rift insanely nicely. Now, something I have done here is, you'll notice there's a lot of toughness with the Halo of Karina, of course. We still have the conventional elements. Nice extra multiplier with the Squirt's Necklace, because we have such high toughness with this build, building up our Vyr stack count. I would actually recommend placing a little bit more Vitality, life percent, also going to be fairly desirable as well on the pieces that you can, including the chest piece, I would say, once you get a little bit more Paragon. And yeah, so it's just a very fluid setup, a very nice setup. For Arcane Power returns, we're running APOC on the source, in combination with Static Discharge. The extra missiles here, bolts, will also proc APOC, so getting those crit rolls up, it's going to be fairly important as well. The proc coefficient on Arcane Torrent Static Discharge in particular is relatively high compared to other skills, right? So this is going to be quite nice if you're channeling on enemies. It is optional if you want to get that extra maximum arcane power pool. I actually like that as an option, so just to have a little bit more room in your tank, so to speak. There is another option here. We are running, of course, Evocation for the cooldown. You're going to want to put cooldown everywhere. Diamond, basically everywhere. Like, even the necklace. Like, the rings, the necklace, the weapon, the swords, the gloves, the shoulder piece, and the necklace. Just to hit this value. So, it's a little bit harder to acquire the cooldown at the beginning of season, but even earlier in season, you can just shoot for those cooldown affixes and ignore everything else, and this build will still perform very well. So something to keep in mind. Attack speed can be fairly important as well. Just remember to get attack speed where you can. Oh, as far as the tuning of this particular cooldown reduction, I've actually placed 7% cooldown reduction affixes here in 2 places, so up to 2% cooldown is my preference to drop. I'd say you could drop anywhere from 1% to 3%, and it would feel a little bit nice. I feel like dropping 2% cooldown to hit this exact amount of 76.11, with Gogok included, feels very fluid for stacking up your Chantodos exactly to 20. and then being able to enter Archon without wasting any time, basically. As you can see here, this is almost 4 seconds of downtime, 3.89. Definitely my preference of level of cooldown if you wanted to shoot for that. We're also running Galvanizing Ward, Magic Weapon Deflection, of course, to keep up our squirts, and Absolute Zero, going to be really nice here for increasing your cold damage, especially since we're dropping the affix from our necklace. This is going to help compensate the loss of the cold damage there, right? And it's also going to just be up a lot longer. The duration here is quite nice. And then we also have Time Warp, so increasing our additive damage, because our additive damage here is not high at all. We don't have any skill damage for Chantodo that can help us out, for Vyr or Archon that can help us out here. So getting this debuff damage can be quite nice. And one interesting thing, quick reminder, is that the Time Warp bubble can apply twice with this build. If you put it on the ground and then go into Archon, the version of the spell that's on the ground will be different than the version of the spell that you put up your bubble with in Archon, and they will stack additively. So this is going to be a total of 30% increased damage to that additive category if that scenario arises. So just keep that in mind. That's something you can use to increase the clear of the build, and that's why I'm recommending this particular skill. That being said, if you don't like it, you can run Teleport in this build. I would recommend Calamity because it helps you stack up your Chantodos and also stuns enemies, but you can go Safe Passage if you want to as well, you know, Wormhole, whatever room you want on Teleport, if you want to swap that in. The one argument for doing that this season would be the Shadow Clones. So Shadow Clones, when you click Pylons, are going to be a thing probably, and they're going to maybe kill off the density that you are attacking. Now, luckily, at the levels that I was attempting, these 109s that I was running, the Shadow Clones did not one-shot most enemies, meaning that you still had targets to attack, and that's kind of why I feel like this build still works. You're not going to get clipped or anything. You're not going to... there's only 1 or 2 scenarios where I lost a few Chantodo stacks because of the Shadow Clone killing density. But aside from that, it's a very fluid build, and you don't really have to worry as much about resetting Archon in the least, because, again, we have a standard duration due to the Captain Crimson's giving us so much cooldown here from the set itself as well. It's kind of what enables this build to work. This little bit of extra cooldown, this 20%, just allows you to hit that value with the Go-Go Swiftness. So super cool build, very excited. Notably, I went for the Bane of the Powerful here. It is worth discussing because we have such high elite damage here. It's like, why would you still go for that? Because the elite damage here is being added into our 50% here, giving us 65% total. So the relative benefit of the elite damage here from the Bane of the Powerful is only like 10%, right? And my answer is that this is still the easiest bonus to keep up. It's still the most impactful, I feel. You could go Zai Stone of Vengeance here, but I didn't like how that bonus... I didn't quite like that bonus. But if you want to swap this gem out, go for an Esoteric for more toughness, for example. Yeah, Zai's and Esoteric are probably the strongest choices if you wanted to replace that, so just keep an eye on those as options. Yep, it's just a very well-rounded, very solid build at this point. Tried and true, you could say, and it's going to be a front runner in the coming season, so I hope you enjoy it.